Good morning.
Good morning.
So nice to have my grandchildren in Spring Grove, Minnesota. We're at the house. It's called the Sylling house. It belongs to Mike and Diane Schmidt. But Mike's mother was a Sylling, and my mother was a Sylling. And they grew up in Spring Grove, the Syllings. And today I'm going to be reading from a book called The Autobiography Book of Marie Sylling, 1930. We found this in an old trunk in the basement of the store in Houston, where I grew up, Houston, Minnesota. And it was written when my mom was in high school. So in 1930, how many years ago would that have been from today?
82? Yeah, 82. 82 years.
82 years ago she wrote this. So we're going back in history a little bit. So you'll see how she thought. She wrote a really nice autobiography, and I won't take time to write the whole thing, but we'll go through some of it so you understand some of your history. But let's begin with you introducing yourselves. Let's start with the oldest, Luther.
Hello, my name's Luther. I'm 10, and I was born in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, and I still continue to live in Cedar Rapids, Iowa.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Ella Kittleson, and I live in Decorah, Iowa. I'm 9 years old, and I still live in Decorah, and I was born there.
Hi, my name is Ty, and I am 8 years old, and I was born in New Hampshire, and I live in Cedar Rapids, Iowa.
Hi, my name is Anders, and I live in Decorah, Iowa, and I was born in Decorah.
How old are you?
7. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And my name is MaryAnn. I'm your grandma. And I used to be called MaryAnn Schmidt, but my married name, I married Dan Thurmer, and so we've been married 45 years, so my name for 45 years has been MaryAnn Thurmer. And that's how you know me, Grandma Thurmer. And today I want you to look at the family tree that belongs to Dan and I, because this was made by my daughter Johanna, the mother of Anders and Ella. And it was a Christmas gift last Christmas. And on it, she wrote June 18th, 1967. That's the year Dan and MaryAnn were married, Grandpa and I. And to us were born 4 children. First Janelle, then Jonathan, then Johanna, and then Hans. So these are the branches of our tree, 4 offspring. And they all, not all of them, because our son Jonathan was killed in an accident, but our daughter Janelle married who?
Kristen.
John Book.
Right, and to them were born Luther,
Elsa, and Ty.
and Elsa can't be here, but she's 5. And then Johanna married who?
Carlton Kittleson.
Kittles. Ryan Carlton Kittleson, and to them were born
Ella Marie and Ella.
right, right. And our youngest was Hans Skifton, my maiden name, Hans Skifton Thurmer, and he married Lauren Marie, and they do not have a family yet. They were just married last summer. And so today we're going to talk about what my mother wrote in her autobiography, and we'll add a little to the roots of this tree, because the world didn't start with me, right? I had a mom and a dad. Okay, so my mother, her name was Marie Sylling. And she married Arnold Skifton, who lived in Houston, and that was like 25 miles from Spring Grove, so they dated about quite a few years before they got married in 1939. And they had 2 girls, Roseanne, you know Aunt Roseanne, Rosaen, that's a family name, and this is me. Well, now we've got to go down because, thank you, Marie had a mom and dad, right? And her mother was called Mina Haugsted. And her dad was Albert Sylling. Now, so Mina is my great-grandma. And we're going to start reading. Well, I'll just tell you. Mina's mom was Martha. And her father was Andreas. So Marie starts talking about her grandma, Martha. And I'll read a little bit what she says. She starts her autobiography, My Heritage. And then she writes, my maternal grandmother, who was so generous and ever willing to help others, was born in Oidnes, Norway on June 26, 1841. Her maiden name was Martha Marie Nelson. Her parents were farmers in Norway. She had 1 sister and 1 brother. The man whom she chose to be her husband was Andrew or Andreas Haugsted, whom she had known since her childhood. He was born in the same time in the same village in Norway, but 10 days before she was born, so they're almost the same age. So he was born June 16, 1841. They were both baptized in the same water, and they were confirmed in the same water. They were both Lutheran, of course. That's what Mom wrote. And his parents were farmers, and he had a few sisters and 3 brothers. After their marriage, they lived in Norway 6 years before they came to America. And 2 children were born in Norway, a boy and a girl. Besides farming, grandfather was manager of the sawmill in Jørvik, where so much lumber was made. In the year 1867, they, together with their 2 children, sailed for America. Landing at the port of New York, from there they took a boat to Lansing, Iowa. It was very interesting to hear Grandma relate of their long ocean voyage. Sometimes suddenly a storm came up, and they didn't know if they would ever see America. If anyone died while aboard, they would hoist them into the ocean for their bodies to be buried at sea. So I won't read any more from here, but it's kind of fun for her to read what she wrote, right? Now this book is about the Wilmington Lutheran Church, where they ended up living in Wilmington. And this is a picture of them, the ones that came from Norway, but of course this is when they were older, right? It's not when they were having children.
So who are those 2?
Those are Martha and Andreas, who sailed for America.
Can I see the picture again?
Do you have any questions?
No.
I'm going to just read a little bit from this book because this is kind of interesting about how their life was. It is about Andreas Haugsted and his wife Martha and their 2 children, Niels and Hannah. They immigrated from Land in Norway, and after 7 weeks crossing the ocean, they arrived in Lansing, Iowa. Thomas Trius met them there with his team of oxen. He also brought them a basket of lunch, which was more than welcome, as the food they had brought from Norway had disappeared some time before. Now, my grandma used to tell me about this because this was her mother. And she heard it many times, I'm sure, how hungry they were. Mr. Trius told them to help themselves and eat, but Marta was timid, bashful, and modestly polite. Now, what do you say when you're really hungry and they pass you more food? Do you say,
Thank you.
thank you, and you'll take another piece? Yeah. Well, we're not that timid. If we're hungry, we'll say, well, thank you. We'll take a second piece. But she said, no, thank you, not anymore. And to her horror, Mr. Trius dumped the remaining food into the Mississippi River. And I remember my grandma telling me, her mom said, I was so hungry I could have eaten my fingers. But they were just being polite and timid. So anyway, that tells a little bit about their life. And then they after they got to Wilmington, they built their house and made their home and were happy until the year 1881, when a diphtheria epidemic struck the community. The Hougsteds buried 2 of their children. Diphtheria was a terrible disease. The Hougsteds, after burying 2, Andreas, who was a carpenter, was busy making coffins for the neighbors. Some 50 children were buried that winter in that community.
How did they die?
Of diphtheria. It's a disease that used to be. Now you get shots so you don't get diphtheria. That's,
What happened?
well, they died.
Oh.
But this was long ago before they had immunizations. Aren't we lucky? We don't have to worry about diphtheria. So they were buried in the old church cemetery. Andrea had his lumber and tools in the bedroom, and the family got $1 for a plain coffin, and $2 if it was trimmed.
Was that a lot of money back then?
I think it was. This was how my mother looked when she wrote that. This is my mom in high school. Do you want to pass it around? I was going to read a little more from here, and we'll skip to when she writes about country school. My mom had a brother named James and a brother named Homer. And so this was a picture she had in her autobiography of them. And when she was little, she had to walk to school every day. And she said on this page, I did not mind playing with the boys. Once while visiting school, one of the older boys, Arnold Senes, asked me to come and sit with him. He thought he would make me blush, but I guess he soon changed his mind, for I strode gallantly over and sat down with him, and the pupils were just in a shade of horror, laughter. And you know who had the crimson face? Arnold. The incident's still green in my mind, wrote my mother, although I was just a little girl at the time. Did I show you the country school? Here. Now, my mom is the one in the front. There's it. She's right there. So you can look at that. She was the shortest one in the front row. She was the youngest that year. That was her first year. She was in first grade. In a one-room school.
Like,
One teacher would teach the whole school.
Was it kindergarten through 8th?
Just 1 through 8.
Yeah.
They didn't have kindergarten.
Oh.
Now, on this page, my mother said, the dolls found a deep place in my heart. Do you know I have a doll collection, right? I like dolls. And I got that, I think, from my mom, because she loved dolls. And she writes way back in 1930 how the dolls found a deep place in her heart. She said, I lavished much affection on them, even so much that I considered them as my sisters. If anyone asked me if I had any sisters, I hastily replied, yes, many, and began reciting the names of my dolls. I managed to give them each a name and even conducted funerals for some of them. After I had had them buried for some time, I dug them up again. But who can guess why maybe she played funeral? Ty?
When the dolls broke, or like,
Yeah.
like a button fell out or something.
Yeah, that's a good reason to bury it. Why else would she pretend to play funeral or thinking maybe that they were dying? What kind of stories would she have heard about from her mother?
The stories of like the sickness of their children.
Right? See, my mom's grandpa was the one that they lived with on the same farm as her grandpa, Andreas, who was making all these coffins for the 50 children that died in one winter. And so my mom grew up probably hearing about that. So when you play dolls, you play what you know. So she probably just played funeral. I remember her telling me she'd have her friends over and they'd cry, and some of them would act like the pastor and he'd give a little talk and then they'd bury the doll. So those are some of my memories too. Now I'm going to continue about her memories of rural school, which is country school. She said it was always fun. In winter, during noon, we went skiing, like in the winter time. Wouldn't that be fun at school? Bring your skis and go skiing. Or coasting down a steep hill. Selma Bungie was my best pal, and we always sat together. Some of the girls were kind of feministic to play ball with the boys, but Selma and I always played ball. We walked off with many pats on our back for making a home run. It gave me a heartache to sing the farewell song the last day of school, but I was comfortable with the thought of high school. So after 8th grade, she had to go to Spring Grove, where we are now, and she went to the high school, and she had to live in town with somebody she didn't know because it was too far. She couldn't walk all the way to Wilmington, so she lived in town. But she loved school, and she always told me how she loved to learn. And her quote in here is, "I am going to attend school all my life." Of course, that was broad-minded, but I meant much of it. And I know you all love to learn, right? Do you have any questions? Are you getting a little feel for what it was like in my mother's time? Just think how times have changed. Yes, Ty?
It's nice to know how our ancestors, like, how they had their lives.
Yeah. Have you been kind of envisioning Marta and Andreas leaving their country, their family, and they just got on a boat and sailed 7 weeks? Yes, Al?
Do you have some of your mom's dolls?
I do. They're all tucked away in different places. I did bring along one more thing. This was my mother's photo book. That's another thing she loved to do, is take pictures. Of course, you'll notice they're all in black and white.
I was just going to say
all
that.
of them.
Well, some turned a little blue, but these were some of her classmates. So you can get an idea of how they lived. Her brother, James, flew an airplane. I think there's a picture of that in here. And so we can talk about that another time. But this is a beginning of learning about Marie Sylling Skipton. Thanks for joining me in the Sylling house. It's been a great week.